Is that Beth Rigby? The Beth Rigby?
I don't know about the.
A Beth
I'd
Rigby.
radio it, just a bit.
Yeah, Mark, did you hear the Beth Rigby use a bad word in the Oval Office today?
What was the word? I'm so tired.
It was screw up the United States.
For me, that's tame.
I've discovered that you have to change your vocabulary with Trump because he uses words that we might not have used in the past, but now he uses them, so we have to. Poor BBC are trying to do a proper broadcast here while we do banter on a podcast. Sorry, guys. Anyway, I'm Mark Stone.
And I'm James Matthews.
And I'm Beth Rigby, and I am here at the White House, and I'm doing a little cameo on Trump100. I couldn't be happier because I'm dying to get on this podcast.
Beth Rigby, as I live and breathe. Tell us about it, Beth. You're here for a day, yeah?
I'm here for a day. It feels like I've been here for about 3 or 4 days, but I think that's just Trump time. Yeah, we're here for a day because the Prime Minister has come on his visit to see Trump. And it has been quite the whirlwind. High stakes for Keir Starmer. And I think he's probably about to get on the plane now. I'm staying here to do Trump100. He's probably quite a happy man.
Well, the only person so far that we found that wasn't pleased with the way it went is a Canadian MP who has been tweeting that Keir Starmer could have been a bit more positive when he was asked why he was not being more critical of Donald Trump's position that Canada should be the 51st state. Well, he dodged it very well, didn't he?
Yeah, but this is the whole rift of Keir Starmer and Donald Trump for months. I have watched Keir Starmer being asked difficult questions about Donald Trump, looking slightly startled, a little bit nervous, and then swerving it. And why? Because he wants to flatter Donald Trump. He understands that Donald Trump does not like personal criticism. And this has all been part of this strategy building up the relationship with Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Now, you wouldn't necessarily think that Keir Starmer, the Labour lawyer by background and the rather flamboyant Republican, mercurial, capricious Donald Trump would find some bromance. But it actually seems that they get on. And actually, if you talk to people in government about it that may have seen them together, they say they genuinely like each other. Keir Starmer's quite down to earth. Trump likes that. And that he doesn't have any affectations. He's not a big showy guy. He's not trying to out-alpha Donald Trump. And it actually seems to have gone down an absolute storm. And he has. Because we might get a bloody trade deal, and they did not come in here.
Careful on the trade deal, though, because I think people get overexcited about that. Trade deal could just mean a deal to avoid tariffs. And it may well be that, but that's good.
That is good. In the day after Trump's threatening tariffs on the EU of 25%. He said, didn't he, the EU was set up to screw the US. And then the UK Prime Minister comes. I nearly upgraded him then to president, not yet. The UK Prime Minister comes along and he manages to get Trump to sound pretty positive on the idea of avoiding tariffs, and that's a massive win.
I think Trump responded well to what I was told in the past few days would be Starmer's strategy, which is in public to be effusive, in private to be polite but firm, and I think that's what happened.
There was much talk about the Macron bromance and just how the two men today would come together. I think Americans find Brits relatable generally. I saw a bit of body language going on. I mean, Starmer, he went in for the tickle a couple of times, I thought, certainly hand on shoulder. What's your reading of the way the two men interacted, Beth?
I think I would say that Britain deployed all its soft power, and it has been doing that not just today, but long before today. Do you remember when Trump went over to Notre Dame? I think it was before he was inaugurated, the opening of Notre Dame. And who did they send out? Prince William. Yeah. And why was President Trump late for dinner with Macron? Because he loved hanging out with Prince William. He loves the royal family. His mother's from Scotland. They deployed King Charles. They have given him the invitation, not the prospect, second state visit. No one's had that. Trump.
It is, and that's quite a signature, isn't it? Beautiful. He's a beautiful man, a wonderful man, and we appreciate it. I've gotten to know him very well, actually. First term and now second term.
I'd also say I think Keir Starmer is sometimes a bit underestimated back home, because when he first started in politics, he was very loyally. He was pretty stiff. He only became a politician in, 2015? And actually, sometimes I think that gets misconstrued as someone that behind closed doors can't be quite charming and charismatic and get what he wants, but apparently he's a really tough negotiator. And I think Trump respects that. I mean, Trump wants alpha, he just doesn't want to be defenestrated in public, right?
I think the royal visit, that will boost Donald Trump, the personal brand, which is why he will like that. One thought occurred to me. He's being invited, of course, to come to Balmoral first before to plan the big engagement. That's a relief because, of course, when he goes to a Scottish golf course, he's surrounded by crowds of protesters. So they've clearly thought that one through. But in terms of the agenda, Mark, yeah, there was trade, but also Ukraine, specifically the business of a security guarantee. What progress was made there?
There seems to have been some. I think Keir Starmer's message on that was to remind Donald Trump how important America is for Europe, to remind Donald Trump that he wants to be seen as a winner, he wants to be seen as a peacemaker, but to do that, he can't pull the rug from underneath Europe overnight. I think that the messaging in private will have been, yes, Mr. President, we are going to spend more on our own defence, and I will take my messaging and I will tell European leaders, look, I had a really good trip, partly because I managed to deliver on his request for us to spend more. You guys over the channel, you could do the same as well. I think that will be a message. Britain being a bridge to Europe, being the conduit that can deliver Trump's message.
I was going to say, James, we went to an embassy event last night when Starmer arrived, and some of the team had been up on the Hill talking to Republicans. People loved the defence commitment, accelerating defence spend in the UK.
Interesting.
But look, on the issue of safeguarding in Ukraine, from a UK perspective, what the number 10 team think they've got out is that they've got Trump's commitment to NATO. He expressed commitment to NATO.
He said that like he said Article 5.
Yeah, and Article 5, so that's a big tick for them. And on the sort of security stuff, I think there's a bit of a concern within the White House that they're worried that if they start talking about security backstops, it might be misconstrued as like US troops on the ground and stuff. And so they kind of, I think Trump, I've told, gets a bit nervous about that stuff. Trump seemed to be saying today, I'm not getting into that arrangement. We can sort that all out. It won't be a problem, but I need to do the deal first. And on that, he said, it's either going to happen very quickly or not at all.
Can I put a slight dampener on this excitement that will certainly be in Downing Street and on the plane home tonight? 2 points I'd make. First of all, on Ukraine. We are a long way from Trump may say the peace deal's around the corner, but there's one part of this plan who we haven't really heard from, the Russians. How are they going to actually react to NATO troops on Ukrainian soil, American jets buzzing over in the air? These are the complicated parts of that peace deal that we just don't know the answer to. Remember, if you buy Vladimir Putin's rationale for going into Ukraine, it was the encroachment of NATO. And so he is going to get NATO troops in Ukraine. And all I'm saying is that right now, today, clearly this went very well, but on whether it's on trade, whether it's on Ukraine, or whether it's on something else, that we are still in the very vague edges of the contours of these plans. The other point to make on Trump is, we see how quickly he pivots.
Yeah. Or he might think, as you said, Mark, I can't bring Putin to the table, so I'm going to just completely walk away from it because he doesn't want to look like he hasn't succeeded. What was interesting as well today, though, was Zelensky's. Trump has this way of really slamming people, and then when he sees them, he's pretty nice to them. President Zelensky's coming, and now Trump's saying, I don't remember calling him a dictator, just swerved all the questions on that. He's obviously, I think this minerals deal really has been substantial. Like the UK delegation was saying to me that we shouldn't underestimate how much that has changed Trump's attitude. He keeps going on. Every time he's asked about Ukraine, he talks about the fact that the money was given, not lent, and now he wants the money back. It's America first, right? It's America first foreign policy. And that's obviously helped grease the wheels as well.
Yeah. Starmer, he does take encouragement home, but, as you point out, he takes uncertainty. He did read the room well, I thought, on a few occasions One of them was in that second news conference when he was asked a question, invited to denigrate Vladimir Putin, actually, and in different company, maybe he would have launched into a hard critique. Somehow, in the presence of Donald Trump, that didn't seem to be appropriate. He was striking in the Oval Office, and you were there, Beth. Uh, Trump showed an affinity for Putin. He spoke for him when he was asked about the launching of a second invasion. And he actually said, "We went through the Russia hoax together." I mean, these two have a relationship that gets more special every day. Starmer didn't want to hear that. Neither will Zelensky.
James, you actually make a really, really important point here, and it's just sort of reminded me because all the while we're looking at it through the lens of how does Starmer manage Trump and how does he swerve this, and he's not going to criticise Putin really sharply in front of Trump because that might be a problem. But back home, people don't like it. They want a prime minister to call out Russian aggression. Putin carried out chemical attacks on British soil. Putin invaded Ukraine. And actually, that it is a bit of a balancing act for Keir Starmer, where if he appears too much, cozying up too much with Trump, when he's not popular back home, it is a difficult tightrope to walk.
I had a WhatsApp group going with a few mates while the Oval Office meeting was going on, and one of them said to me, "This meeting is cringe." I actually got a little bit of sick in my mouth, and she did not like the idea that the Prime Minister was just being so effusive, fawning. But I guess the real politique is that he has to.
He has to.
Yeah, Beth, take us into the Oval Office. Describe it. You go in, you want to ask a question. How do you go about it?
By the way,
It's
because
really stressful.
you've been in there, James and I haven't.
I know that this is a disgrace, isn't it? I said to Mark, next time I come, he needs to run me over or something. And then they're like, "Sorry, she's in hospital, so I'm going to have to take the spot." But it's really stressful getting in there because there's a massive pylon through the narrow door in the press briefing room. And I was at the back of the queue because I'd done a live when Starmer was coming into the White House. You're kind of squashed by the sofa, between the cameras and the sofa, and then you have to try to pick your moment to yell at Donald Trump. And what I did was I walked in, I was like, try and make eye contact with him, smile at him and say hello, so he's noticed you're in the room, and also wear a luminous colour so you actually are just garishly in his face. But it's an amazing it's
Shameless.
I'm absolutely shamed. It's an amazing experience being in the Oval Office, and then you sort of turn around and the desk is there, and it's actually quite a small space. Interestingly, when I've done it before, sorry, that's a humble brag, sorry, Mark.
When I've done it before.
When we did it with President Biden and Starmer a few months ago, they didn't have loads of aides. What was interesting with Trump is he has Vance in there. Who else do you have there? Rubio was in there.
Yeah.
His chief of staff was in there. And then Starmer had his foreign secretary and his chief of staff. So it was a bit more sort of bilateral, formal than I remember. But yeah, it's very stuffy. It's a massive scramble. It's like trying to get to the front at a concert of an artist you really like, as opposed to two politicians you just got to try and get a question to.
Yeah, and you were in the mosh pit. There came a point where he picked out one journalist and he said, "You've got a nice face." Who was that?
It was Chris Hope from GB News, and I have to say,
He's got a nice
and call me
face.
vain. I was like, do I not have a nice face? But then I let that thought go, James.
Oh, well, he'll be dining out on that, won't he?
We've just seen Brett Baer walk past. He's the Fox News anchor who has just interviewed Keir Starmer. He did a couple of interviews before heading to the airport. And I spoke to Brett about 20 minutes ago. And he too was effusive in his praise of how he thought it went. It's Fox News, friendly often with the Trump world. But he sat down with Starmer and seemed to think that the whole thing had gone really very well.
So I suppose, we look at what happens next. I suspect there'll be a deal cobbled together, presented to the world, presented to Putin as a kind of template for a lasting peace. Probably not quite what the European coalition is after, but probably the best they can wring out of Trump in terms of a security backstop and so on. And I think they progress from there, possibly along separate lines, and sit tight, wait for the end of the Trump presidency with their fingers crossed, in much the same way as Putin sat for so long waiting for the Biden presidency to finish and Trump to come in the door.
Yeah. Anyway, we must leave it there. But Beth, it has been.
I think you should make this podcast longer. I could do
No.
another 20 minutes.
Don't say that, Beth. Don't say that.
They're like, we're doing it every day for 100 days.
Exactly. But it's been a pleasure having you
I want to
here.
know, I've got a question for you both. What happens at the end of 100 days apart from you going to a beach with a a margarita? Are you going to carry it on like weekly?
You'll have to find out.
If I had $1 for every time somebody said to me, Trump 1,000, I'd be a rich man. Right? Can you imagine 1,000 days?
We have thought of a name
I
for
need
what
to lie down before I even contemplate that.
we have thought of a name for what it might be, but we will not tell you. Anyway, you have been listening to Trump 100.
Soon to be 1,000.
Yeah, Beth, it's been lovely having you on. Thanks
been
for
a
coming.
pleasure.
Apparently, you've got a podcast.
Now, I've got a far less successful podcast than you, Mark.
Absolutely not.
I've got a podcast called Electoral Dysfunction. Well, it's we. I do it with Ruth Davidson, the Conservative peer, and Harriet Harman, the Labour peer, and it's out every Friday. And if you like US politics and you want a little bit of UK politics as well, you come and listen. We actually just talk a lot of other stuff than politics.
But you actually do fill places. You've been out on the road.
We have been out on the road.
Yeah, see,
We did
James,
a live tour.
we could just dream about that. We fill virtual Wembley.
You haven't got time. You're too busy doing it daily. That's the thing.
Too busy locked in our basements.
That is it for day 40. Remember, email us all your questions. The email address is trump100@sky.uk. James, Martha, when she's back from her beach, and I will do our very best to answer them. But that has been day 40. What a day here in Washington. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow for day 41.
Safe travels home, Beth. Many thanks. Great to see you. All the best.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
That was fun, wasn't it?